Hello there, this is Beth, and here with a tarot card. It's the Empress this month. And the Empress, it's right after the High Priestess. You're kind of in a little full magician, kind of a dualistic portion of the tarot where you start off with the Fool, and then you have Magician, which is typically considered male. Then you have High Priestess, which is considered typically female. Then you go to the Empress, which is once again typically female, and then next card would be the Emperor. So you kind of have this little moment of duality within the tarot, and she's part of that kind of quattro. Is it quattro? Quartet? Quartet, that's it. Not quattro. Quartet of cards that have a little bit of duality in there. And I think part of the reason why you do see the duality so much in traditional tarot is just from the time frame that it stems from and a lot of the writing and the age that it was codified. So, but you do see decks that are starting to morph out of that duality. Wheel of Fortune Project Tarot is one that focuses on the divine feminine. So their emperor is also female, which is kind of a very different vibe. It's a very cool major arcana deck if you're looking for something very cool. But back to the Empress. Back to the Empress. This is from the Mythic Tarot, the 80s version. I don't know what the new one looks like. I hear the graphics have changed. So, oh, this is Demeter. And this is one of my favorite cards. It's so, the more you look, the more you see. The wheat, the poppies, the flowers, the crown on her head is a little city, as it were. She is ripe and pregnant, and the landscape behind her is ripe and ready. It's very fertile, it's very pastoral. It's both the springtime and the harvest within this card. It embodies both those aspects of the Empress, I think, very well with this deck. And wheat is something that is often very much associated with fertility and goddesses in general, just the staff of life, the bread of life. In pre-potato Europe, people ate roughly about 2 pounds of bread a day in pre-potato Europe. 2 pounds. That's a lot of bread. So, when you hear like wheat is the staff of life, and also Americans often get confused with corn. Because in the States, corn is maize. Maize is corn. And many other places, corn just refers to the predominant grain. So don't get confused with that. Just one weird little segue there before we actually get back to the Empress. When she comes up in a reading, it's a time where you really need to look at how are you gestating, what needs to be growing, what needs time to become what it needs to become, instead of trying to force it into being what it is before it is. There's an aspect there that's like you have to grow this and let it, kind of just do what it needs to do. It's not a time to be like, yes, it's now. I'm just going to sculpt it and make it what it is. This is a time when you see the Empress pop up that it's like, okay, how can I grow this? How can I be kind and compassionate in this process of creating, of growth that's going on in my life currently? Or in that situation, it's a time to let it just kind of sit and do its thing. Put the pot on simmer and see what happens. Let it meld those flavors, if you will. Because there is also, the aspect of fertility is not rushing things. You can't really rush a harvest. It's going to be ready when it's ready. You can't rush a plant to grow. You can't rush a baby to be born. So when you're working with this energy in your life and in situations, you have to remember that it's going to take time, and it needs that time to do what it needs to do. So don't try and force it. It's not a time to be like ramming it through and carving it up and making it happen. Look towards that ability to grow things with kindness and compassion, to nurture, to use that mother figure kind of energy to get going and get it where you want it to go. Because when you kind of block her off too, the other aspect is you get kind of that mommy dearest kind of energy of cruelty, of being mean, the sow that eats her piglets kind of energy is what you start to bring in when you block this off. Instead of letting her flow and nurture and be compassionate and kind. When you block this energy, you get the opposite of that. You get mean, petty, passive aggressive behavior kind of stuff. And that's what that's kind of the warning there. It's like, how am I reacting to this? Is my situation that I'm trying to grow stalled and I'm just angry about it because I can't see it as part of the process? So yeah, really look at that. Why are you reacting that way, especially if you're acting in a contradicted way with this card? And take time to explore that and see how and if you are cutting something off, or if you need to change a mindset. Sometimes too can change that. It's one thing I learned from art and how I create is I can start something and I can put it away for months. Months, and I mean months. I have like a year, maybe, a very long time. And it can just sit there and I won't touch it. I might look at it or I might not. And then eventually I will hit a point where I'm ready to come back to that piece. And I used to call it procrastination. And then I realized that it wasn't procrastination. It was part of my process. That is how I create. I have very long gestation periods in my creation process sometimes. And once I kind of started letting that Empress energy in to that process and allowing for gestation and nurturing, those fallow periods, if you will, fallow periods are just periods of not working on it because I'll be working on other things, just not that thing. So I let her in and I let her do her work, and my creative process got so much easier. In my process in my life also got easier because I know that I need to be like aware that there's a good chance that I'm going to work hardcore on something for a month, 2 months, and take 3 to 4 off and then come back. So remember that. How can you gestate? How can you let the process grow without making it grow? Nurture it. Be kind and compassionate to it as opposed to, of trying to force it or make it work. And that's the Empress. That's how I see her, especially this one. They kind of change how you view things depending on decks. If you're interested in how I deal with that, I have a series on my blog called basically I take 3 cards from 3 different decks and I interpret them. So, and how the imagery affects and impacts how I see cards. So check out the link below if you want to find out more about the 3 card series and the tarot, and I'll be talking to you later. Bye bye.